Henry Canfield was a murderous, suicidal maniac, and he lived right here. He died right here. The house was right here. There's a gully down there, like a ditch that's been dug on that side, and then over here on this side there's another gully over there, and we're on a hill here. So you wouldn't put your house on the side of the hill in a gully, and there's one on each side, so the house would have been right on top of the hill, which is where I'm standing right now. So let's start detecting this house and see if we can find anything from the life and times of Henry Canfield. I've dug about 50 holes already, and I'm not showing you all the modern day junk that I'm finding, like shredded up beer cans and stuff, but this is the second time in my life that I have dug this right here. It looks like just ordinary barbed wire, but it's not. It's a different style, and this is like the early, like the very first example of barbed wire. So now that we found something from the day and age of Henry Canfield, it would be best if you went to this link and read the original news report of what exactly happened here, so that way you can follow along with the story. But this right here is Glidden barbed wire. This is one of the very first styles of barbed wire to come out. I can tell just by the points and how it's wrapped. So this is like was used in 1800s. The points on this barbed wire are very, very small, and so that's the old style stuff. The new style stuff is has a whole lot stronger points on it. So yeah, so we found something that's probably from Canfield. Okay. Do you know how many times I had to say Henry Canfield was a horse salesman? So I think we're gonna find horse stuff. I just said that about 25 times, and then I dug a piece of aluminum, a shredded can, garbage, you know, and then finally I found some horse tack. So yes, Henry Canfield was a horse salesman. He owned 20 acres in the country. So I think today we're gonna find horse stuff. Look at it. Look at this, it's some type of buckle, right? That went to a horse, and that's encrusted with rust, so it matches up with the life and times with the family that we're investigating today. So I don't show all the garbage that I dig, but there's a lot of garbage. I just found something else good. I know what it is. Let me open up the hole again, I'll show you. In this hole we find, I already saw this, so I know what it is. We find this. That's from a horse. It's a broken bit, right? This is what you would use to steer the horse. Now, it's probably made out of, yeah, it's made out of iron, and it's a smaller one, I think, right? Anyway, that right there, I think that's called the cheek bit. So we'll clean that up and look at it. But yeah, pretty good. Good find, because we're trying to find horse stuff, and we're finding horse stuff. The thing about this is, if this was 20 acres that had horses on it, the relics are going to be scattered all over the place. I'm not finding much where the house was, but out here in the horse pasture, I'm finding decent amount of stuff. But since horses roam everywhere, and so that means that stuff could be anywhere. So it's going to be a lot of work today detecting in all this wet, tall grass. But keep going. This is tropical soda apple. I didn't know that we had this here in Illinois. Very thorny and poisonous. This presents a problem for modern day farmers because it's a poisonous, noxious weed, and I think it comes from Brazil. But in any case, the horses will eat whatever they want, whatever grass they want. The problem is when you put too many horses on one pasture, they eat everything that's edible, and then they start starving. And when that happens, they're forced to eat whatever they can. And so when they ingest this tropical soda apple, then they get sick. They can even die from it, I think. Let's look at that. It looks like a single T, right? But I think it's something different. I know it's for a horse. We'll have to clean that up and take a good look at it. Is it for like a carriage? Like you hook that up to like the carriage when the horse pulls the carriage? In any case, nobody uses this anymore. That's 1900, no doubt. Here's something good. I've dug a ton of junk today, and I'm not showing that because it's not relevant, but I think this is relevant. I thought it was one of those like harness ornaments, but actually it looks like a spur because it's got a hole in it. See right there? So I think this was like a spur to get those horses to do what you need them to do. Horses are a severe pain because they always get into everything, they hurt themselves, they knock the fence down, and if you have an injured horse, well then you're out money because there's nothing that you can do with an injured horse. It's useless. If you have a problem with a cow, then you just sell the cow and you can get some money back. I just found this right here, which is like a little brass piece of hardware, and I thought that, well, that's disappointing, that's probably modern. But then I remembered in the old 1900s horse catalog, I've seen pictures of these. So just because it looks new doesn't mean it necessarily is. This could be, you know, 100-something years old, so. Okay, first things first, what we have here is a piece of barbed wire. This is very old. It's called Glidden barbed wire, and it's called that because it was invented by this guy, Glidden here, who lived about 3 counties away. Now these tiny little barbs right here are on the original patent. Modern day barbed wire looks very different from that, but Glidden was given the patent because he figured out exactly how to do this. So the problem was, everyone was trying to invent a usable barbed wire, but no one could figure out how to keep the barbs from sliding up and down the wire. Well, this guy Glidden had an idea. He put the barbs on one wire and then took a secondary wire and wrapped it around tightly. That way the wire was stronger and the second wire pinched down on the barbs and kept them all in place. And because of that, Glidden was awarded the patent for barbed wire, and that changed America, because now you no longer needed cowboys on the open range rounding up cattle. Like, that was over when this was invented. Another thing is that if you wanted to be a horse salesman and keep 20 horses inside 20 acres, you could do this, and this barbed wire would keep all the horses together, and it would allow you to manage your operation without having to constantly round up horses and chase them all over the place, because if they can get out, they will. This changed that. The next thing I want to show you is this buckle right here. You can find this verbatim in the old 1900 horse catalog that sold all of this merchandise here. And so this had like a screw, a flathead screw right here. And so I didn't know that they had flathead screwdrivers back then, but they must have. So this is very early 1800s to, you know, turn of the century. So this probably came from Henry Canfield. Up next, we have this spur right here. Now, the spurs in the old 1800s or 1900s catalog look much sharper than this, but that doesn't mean that this right here wasn't available. I don't even know if people still use this anymore. Maybe there's other ways of doing it because I don't know much about it, but it's definitely a spur, and it was encrusted in heavy, you know, iron oxide. So I'm thinking that this too came from Henry Canfield. Up next, we have a bit here, and this large hole right here, this large ring right here, I can see this in the catalog. It's some kind of racing bit. I don't know much about this stuff, but in the catalog it says racing bit, and it's this exact shape and size. This bit is missing the other half, and I think this is called a cheek bit, or like a half cheek bit, and this is in the catalog too. I'm guessing that this stuff is still available today in modern day times, and little, if anything, has changed about it. Now, when I first found this right here, when I first found it, I thought that it was like a single T, right? Like a single tree, which is what you would use to like pull like plows and stuff, but it's pretty small, and it's kind of like, it has a distinguishing shape right there. I looked it up, and it's actually called a yoke balancer. Yeah, that's what it's, a yoke balancer. So this right here was for like a wagon or a buggy, and you would hook the horse up to it, and that's how you got around back then. So it's a mystery item. I don't know what it is. I think that it was supposed to be sharp. I think that it was supposed to poke horses if they stuck their nose or neck somewhere where it's not supposed to be. And here we have two square nuts. Now, the nuts are not well shaped. The hole is not in the middle of the nut. I don't know if you can see that on camera, and the sides are not, they're not parallel. So the fact that it's so badly misshapen tells me that, yeah, it's old. This was not dropped recently. This is, you know, most certainly from Henry Canfield. There's some people over there. The human shape, like the head and torso and moving arms, it's so easy to pick out. If you just look into trees, and if there's somebody walking, you'll see them. It's just, I don't know what it is about the human form. When animals walk through the woods, it's hard to make them out, but when a human walks through the woods, you can definitely see. Two people and I think a kid probably playing around back there. In any case, I hardly found any relics. I spent a long time digging junk, and I found some things that I think belong to Henry Canfield. Yes, they did, but it was hard, and I didn't find anything magnificent. And as I do this more and more, I'm learning this a lot. People in the 1800s, and Henry Canfield died in 1902, they just didn't have the volume of items that we have. I mean, everything they owned, I think, could have fit in like one wooden chest with their clothes. And I mean, at least everything they owned could have fit in a chest and like a part of a wagon, you know? And in our modern day lives, I mean, we have just warehouse full of junk, you know? So it's a big difference, and I'm always interested in how that affected their lives and the way that they thought. And so in this story right here, we see that the basic human emotions were there, you know? I mean, people committed crime, people stole, there was violence. All of that existed, and I think when people talk about like the good old days, they're talking about maybe like 1950s, because if you go back to like 1800s and you read these old newspapers, you see that there's definitely like evil in society, like it did not go away. And it's just interesting to read those old newspaper articles and see what it was that people thought was shocking. And so this story right here was shocking to me, because I thought that in the 1800s, like everything was like perfect, you know, like you know, the good old days when nobody did anything wrong. But I was wrong about that, and I'm glad that we got a chance to come out here and investigate the story, because it's very good to think about these things and to think about how people react to situations in their lives and how that doesn't change over time. Like, basic humanness persists.